Thank you very much, Chris. We call on next on Professor Tom.
Thank you very much. I'm actually not going to talk on domestic politics. We have an American audience here. I'm an American. But I've spent 40 years studying Afghanistan, including many years living there.
You got to really get close to that point.
All right. I've spent over 40 years studying Afghanistan. I've lived with people there. I've watched their suffering over the past 25 or 30 years. I also know the consequences of our decisions, including ones that led to the neglect of Afghanistan after 2002. And our problem of what do you do with it now? And our decisions greatly affect what happens in Afghanistan. But let me focus a little bit on things that you might not be aware of. The Afghans have been at war since 1978. The communist coup broke out. Within a year, the Russians invaded the country. The Russians, in their 10-year occupation, killed 1 million Afghans, led to 4 or 5 million refugees fleeing the country, and absolutely devastated the economy and the people. So when we're talking about war, well, yes, all wars are bad. And anything American troops do that kills Afghans is definitely something that the Afghans are not in favor of. They also look back and ask themselves, what do we get out of these foreigners? And one of the things they expected when the United States came in 2002, after suffering 10 years of Soviet occupation and 10 years of civil war, in which literally over 1 million Afghans were killed, what they wanted from us was to restore order and stability in Afghanistan. They had suffered both a communist regime and a Taliban radical Islamic regime. As you might imagine, such people are not particularly amenable to ideas of democracy, free enterprise, or any other great ideas like ethnic nationalism that might cause them more suffering. But all of their outside sponsors, all people who are given money, they bring their ideas in the country. What I'm telling you, when we talk about money, Afghanistan is a place where a family that earns $500 a year is considered subsistence and above average. $1 trillion is a lot. We spend that much money on war, but one of the things the Afghans say is not on us. And one of the great failures of our policy in Afghanistan is to actually bring an improvement of life to the Afghan people. But here is our dilemma, and where I disagree with my respected colleagues. The difficulty is in Afghanistan is that there is not a fight against a foreign occupation, because until 2006, there were fewer than 20,000 troops in Afghanistan, a country the size of Texas with a population of 30 million. When we won Afghanistan in 2002, do you know how many Americans were on the ground? 400. All right? So when people throw around comparisons with Iraq, with occupation, the Afghans had a little more nuanced view of this. And one of the things they wanted foreign troops to do was to end the warlords that had ruined the country. The foreign troops prevent civil war from coming back. The other thing that we have to realize is, unlike the Soviet period, 60 to 70% of Afghanistan is not involved in the insurgency. The insurgency takes place along the Pakistan border and largely among the Pashtuns, where the Taliban have their greatest influence. One of our problems and what they hope to do is to get us to leave so they can come back. And those of you who say they will not come back, the Afghans remember that when they were abandoned in the 1990s, the Taliban came in. When the world abandons a place like Afghanistan, devil take the hindmost, because you don't have any control over who takes over. And every old warlord, every old Taliban guy, he's looking to see, is there a possibility of coming back? Because in Afghanistan, the perception of power is power itself. And right now, one of the reasons we have difficulty negotiating is the Taliban think, why negotiate? We're going to take over. And what are we negotiating? These people can't win elections. These people are not popular. What they want is the country back the way they had it before when they ran. That is, women in burqas and in their houses, with no opportunity and no education, with prayers being forced on everybody in the country. The Afghans consider them the world's best Muslims, but they don't feel that outsiders should tell them how to do their religion. We ended that.
But one of the things we didn't do, because we went into Iraq, we abandoned Afghanistan in terms of spending no money there on development, minimal amount on security, and now we're paying the price. And the question is, what do we do now? And I would say if the answer was leave and the Afghans will get it all together, don't worry about it, we should leave. But we know from the past 30 years, we are asking for violence to return to Afghanistan on a level that would make our current efforts there minuscule in comparison. And the Afghans have a great fear of that. They have a great fear of abandonment. I would also say do not confuse Karzai or the Karzai regime with Afghanistan. The Afghans do consider him to some extent a puppet, but they consider him an American puppet. And what they are interested in is how do we restore stability to the country. And if that's with another leader or another type of political system, they're open to that. One of the things that we need to think about when we're looking at Afghanistan is what impact does it have on the other side of the world, on the people actually on the ground. And it's very easy to generalize, particularly to conflate Afghanistan and Iraq. But they're two entirely different places. And I think one of the most important things to keep in mind when we're looking at our policies is what impact does it have on Afghanistan? We promised those people that we would restore normality and security. And what we're saying now is, looks like it's a difficult job. Geez, hope you guys can do it again. Maybe we'll be back in 10 or 20 years if we have it together. This is where the United States does have certain responsibilities and no easy answers. And one of the things that if we want to get to negotiations, we have to show that we're serious. To the extent that the Afghans believe we're going to be leaving in 18 months, nobody's going to negotiate. This creates a tremendous problem, both a moral dilemma and a political one. But knowing things on Afghanistan, the governments have risen and fallen largely on the perception of whether they're going to be around. The Taliban fell in less than 10 weeks. They expected that they would be able to fight an insurgency against the United States. Everyone deserted them. Why? Because they are completely unpopular. The difficulty now is they're telling people, the Americans and the 42 international countries that are with us, this is not a war which the rest of the international community said the United States is acting unilaterally. The international community has an investment in this. And to the extent that we say when things are difficult, we're going to get out and leave the Afghans to their fate, I would simply ask you, think about the problems inside Afghanistan. We truly have our own problems. There are no easy answers. But what I'm telling you is that after a long period of suffering in Afghanistan, the things the Afghans want most is not any particular political system. They want normalcy, they want peace, and they want the ability to live their own lives. They want to be able to live their own lives in the way that we do in the United States. Not necessarily the same standard of living, but be able to get up in the morning and know you'll be able to go to bed at night, to know you can educate your kids, to know that there's an economic future. We have to include that as part of our policy. To the extent that we focus entirely on the military, we miss that point. And the way to success for both us and the Afghans is to focus on that vision of a stable life for ordinary people. That is the way out of Afghanistan.